Hi everybody, welcome to 5 Minute Ministries. We're continuing our study in 1 Samuel 16, and I'll be reading verses 8 through 10. Then Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel, and he said, "The Lord has not chosen this one either." Next Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, "The Lord has not chosen this one either." Thus Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. But Samuel said to Jesse, "The Lord has not chosen these." And Samuel said to Jesse, "Are these all your children?" And he said, "There remains yet the youngest, and behold, he is tending the sheep." Then Samuel said to Jesse, "Send and bring him, for we will not sit down until he comes." We think about our last lesson, and we think about the man Eliab who first stood before Samuel. And Samuel said, "This is the guy." But as we learn, God's not looking for the tall, strong, well-spoken, and handsome. He's looking for faithful people. Now, Jesse had 7 other sons go by Samuel, and each one was rejected by God. And Samuel's confused because God sent him to Jesse to find a king among his sons. So Samuel has to ask, "Is this it? Do you have any other children?" And Jesse, as an afterthought, "Oh yeah, he's the youngest. He's out with the sheep." And Samuel thinks this is important. He said, "This has to be the one, so we are going to stand until he shows up." Jesse and all of his sons didn't think a thing about David. Samuel had to have told Jesse, "I'm looking for someone to anoint as king by God's instructions from among one of your sons." They didn't consider David as being worthy enough to even stand before Samuel, let alone be a king. See, David was overlooked. And that's the point of this whole lesson. Each one of us, in one way or another, has felt overlooked, whether in our family, whether at work, whether in high school. It doesn't matter where. At some point in life, we feel overlooked. Gym class is a big one for that, isn't it? For all of those who have been picked last for some reason. We have all felt that way, and we are all overlooked by other human beings. But the good news is God doesn't overlook anybody. He is ready and willing to use the faithful, the ones who are willing to be used. If you are a servant of God, you know Jesus as your Savior, and you are ready and willing to say, "God, use me however you want," God will not overlook you. And it doesn't matter about your age. It doesn't matter about your standing in life, how much money you make, your abilities or disabilities. God can use any of them. God will not overlook anyone who is willing to be a servant. I say, "Well, I can't do much." Well, that doesn't matter to God. God will enhance what you can do. I think about a woman in our church years ago. Her name was Helen. She was in a wheelchair. All she could do was pray for people. She couldn't leave her house often. She came to church when she could. She couldn't do much on her own. But she prayed, and she prayed like nobody I've ever met. She is my hero. God used her. Everyone else would overlook her. But God didn't overlook her. God took her and used her in a mighty way. See, prayer is very lacking in a lot of people's lives. So he drums up prayer warriors like Helen to pray for people who need it. So maybe God is desiring to use you, and you just have to let him. You have to let him use you. You say, "Well, the church overlooked me. I have this skill and ability, but the church doesn't use me anywhere." That doesn't mean God won't use you elsewhere. God can use us outside of the church too. You can pray in your home. You can serve him in your home. Sure, if we serve him in church and we want to and we need to, the church needs servants. But it doesn't matter where you are or who you are. God is not going to overlook anyone who is willing to be used. If you decide you're not willing to be used, God is not overlooking you. He's just not going to use you until you decide you want to be used. So keep all that in mind. The world will overlook you, but God will always look for you and will be ready to let you serve if you are willing to serve. Well, this has been 5 Minute Ministries, And we'll see you next time with more 1 Samuel 16.